before I start with the presentation, we probably have to slightly now change also our mindset a little bit. So I try really here with this presentation starting from the global level. So and I hope that at the end I will come out with something which is also meaningful for the cities. So I divided my presentation into three parts. I really want to try to set the global scene. So why are we in fact talking about climate change and transport? Secondly, then I would like to look into Copenhagen and what happened or not happened in Copenhagen, and what does that mean for transport. And in the third part, then based on that, trying to trickle down and say, okay, what are the implications for the cities, or what are the potential implications for the cities in the future when we might have a decent agreement at some stage by 2012. So here I would like to set the scene first by looking into that figure, and here you see in dark blue the OECD countries, and in light blue also the non-OECD countries, and the carbon emissions from the land transport sector. I will not really talk about aviation and maritime today, even we have always, when we talk about also future emissions from transport, obviously we have also to address the aviation one. But as this project is also about the land transport, about road and about rail, and especially about passenger transport, we are focusing on that part. And we will see here, and this is data from the International Energy Agency, at the moment the vast majority of the CO2 emissions out of transport comes from CO2 comes out of the OECD countries. Nevertheless, according to the International Energy Agency, in scenarios, there will be a growing emissions out of the transport sectors in the non-OECD countries. Nevertheless, the other interesting thing is also in the business as usual scenario, we observe that there is not much reduction here when we just stick to the current model of transport in OECD countries. And here, this is a second slide based on work we are also doing for the European Environmental Agency. And here you see that over the last 20 years, the carbon emission in transport in the European Union grew by 28%, while overall the global the greenhouse gas emissions in total even declined by 7%. So if we continue to carry on with the same increase in transport emissions, and we still take also IPCC serious, and that we want to end up somewhere between -60 and -80%, then we have to tell out of the transport sector and the business as usual scenario to all the other sectors, to industry, to household. So we need all our energy and emissions for transport. So zero carbon for industry, zero carbon for household. So therefore it becomes quite obvious that we have also to do something around transport if we want to tackle climate change. And even here, which I put here, these are the emission targets the European Union came up with -20 or up to -30% by 2020. Again, this would mean, if we continue with the transport growth, that this already out of transport we will have more than 30% just from transport in greenhouse gas emissions. And this is without aviation even, it would get even higher. So therefore there is a need for a major challenge also, for a major change in transport. And what has this to do with the cities and also with our project? At the moment cities consume 2/3 of the world energy, and we see lots of scenarios that also with ongoing urbanization, that there will be even an increase in CO2 emissions caused in cities. And here one of the major sources again is transport. So there is a need also of local level actions on transport in terms of carbon. Otherwise we would never achieve in Europe, but also on a global scale, any ambitious greenhouse gas emission targets. And the last point, and I come to that in a minute, is talking about Copenhagen. So far we have a Kyoto Protocol and we have an agreement, and based in this agreement also there were reduction targets, which includes also transport, but not explicitly mentioned transport as a sector really to tackle. And the other problem is also we had several instruments in the Kyoto Protocol, emission trading scheme, joint implementation, CDM, and this didn't help transport and it didn't help also the cities so far. So we have to think also what is the link in the future between cities and urban transport and also this climate change debate. So coming to, by setting this scene, so transport is important, we can't tackle climate change without tackling also transport. So having this in mind, looking into the road to Copenhagen, and I was starting to talk about the Kyoto Protocol. It was adopted in 1997, entered force into 2005, and we are currently in the first commitment period, and the so-called Annex 1 countries, so the developed countries, agreed on a reduction of -5.2%. And here we at the moment also observe that most of the countries even not manage the reduction they committed to. And we had also the different flexible instruments, and as I said before, this didn't work really for transport because it was never designed for transport. What happened over the last years towards Copenhagen, that they were setting up two working groups, one still on the Kyoto Protocol, how to improve it, how to improve the instruments, but also towards Copenhagen, coming up with the LCA, so the long-term cooperation. So what should follow after Kyoto? And that was then mostly negotiated over the last 2 years based on an agreement in Bali in 2007. So what we observed in Copenhagen was, first of all, it was a big success in terms of that, in fact it was the first time that so many heads of states actually were sitting together. So acknowledging climate change is a topic worldwide, and it is really crucial. Nevertheless, we came up with a Copenhagen Accord which takes notes, and there are lots of reasons also why there is not a binding agreement. Nevertheless, at the moment, and this is the headline also of the UNFCCC, so the governing body of the UN, organizing the whole process, saying the windows of opportunity will not get bigger. Nevertheless, it's not closed, and I think the media are not doing a good job at the moment just bashing what came out of Copenhagen, because there are certain elements now everybody can work on. So there's nothing lost. It was not a huge success at all, but nevertheless there is also good opportunity